and welcome to OnSurviving. My name is Megan, and I'm a survivor.
And my name is Nobly, and I am a survivor.
Together, we're bringing OnSurviving to the world because it matters.
It matters to me because alongside the frail, Nobly, and I am a survivor. Because alongside the potent fears of our frail hearts is so much hurt, loss, and trust issues that often I've had to navigate through with very little resources and zero trust. I am passionate about this project because I get to be the trusting person to help navigate through the resources that I never had and hopefully make a difference in people's process of surviving.
It matters to me because I want others to recognize the deep strength and rich humanity involved in every step in the process of surviving the tragedies life brings many of us. I suffered silently and alone for too long, and I want to help others to find hope more quickly and readily and feel and be less alone in the process of surviving.
On surviving matters because you matter, we matter.
Awesome. Well, thanks. I'm so glad to be here, glad to be together here to talk about we matter.
Yes.
Right on point. This
Yes.
will be yeah, I'm really thinking this is going to be a pretty darn uplifting episode. What do you think,
Yeah.
Nobly?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we'll go straight into our check-in here first on the 7 points. And
Yeah.
although let me just say right now, apologies for not muting YouTube in the background. So I'm
That's
sure that
okay.
came through. And
Just a little, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. We're human, right? So
We are that.
onward we go. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So we go ahead and get to our check-in today. Always on these 7 points of wellness, because sometimes we're great in some ways and sometimes in other ways. And we just check in with a uh, quick number. 5 means really it's about as good as it can get, and 1 means it is lousy and feels like maybe like it couldn't get worse. So somewhere along that point, let's go ahead and start. Why don't you go ahead and start us the check-in today, Nobly, and I'll follow up, and we'll flip-flop when we do our reflections.
Okay. So physical for me is a 5 because I've been exercising every day and um, eating right. I have to eat certain things and smaller amounts. And so I've been successful at doing that faithfully. So that's a victory. And my intellectual is 4. I had started a new job a couple months back, and I was told today by some higher ups that I'm doing a fantastic job, and they keep giving me more clients, and I'm like, "Ah." So, but I feel really happy about that. And then environmentalist 5 because I recycle really well, and I love the earth and try to be very respectful of her. And my occupational is a 5 because I got the job that I really love and I get to do this with Megan. And I feel like help people with on surviving. And spiritual, I'm also a 5. It's been real. I've had some real good spiritual experiences over the course of the last week. Social's 4. I'm pretty social until I'm not. But this week I have been. And then emotional is a 3. I've had some little bit of childhood trauma kind of stirring around lately that's been kind of painful. But overall, I've had a good week. I'm grateful for that.
Nice. Wow. That sounds actually an overall extraordinary
Yeah.
week. Congrats, by the
Thank you.
way, from your
Thank you.
supervisor. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
really good.
I'm not surprised. I guess it's amazingly wonderful, and I'm not surprised. So Yeah,
I
just
was, but that's my own doing.
uh-huh, yeah, yeah. We'll talk
How
a
are
little bit
you?
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I, last time I was all sort of up around the fives, and not so much this time. Um, I kind of want to wrap a few in together. I think
That's
the
okay.
physical, emotional, I think, well, let's just wrap those two in together. Those are really about a three um, for me at the moment. I think I mentioned before that I am in the process of, well, trying to move
Yeah.
again, needing to move, and under a pretty tight timeline. And I am trying so hard to just keep it together in order to manage all of that. And unfortunately, that feels like eating my emotions, and it is coming out in terms of hives all over me. So I'm just really uncomfortable. I've been, I think keeping good practice. And so it's not like in the bottom or anything, but I'm just looking forward to getting past what I think is more fear of the unknown at the moment,
Yeah.
that is weighing me down and kind of triggering some depressive moments and things like that. So, um, it also weighs on those things, all drag down the intellectual, spiritual, and environmental. I'm still here, and I'm
Yeah.
hopefully going to a good place. So I'm going to put those all at a four. Just, it's good, but it's not like yay, all rah rah like
You
I
have
was
so
last
much
time.
going on.
I do. I do. And it's a lot. And yeah, like
Yeah.
we said, we're human. So
Yeah. Yep.
not firing on all cylinders. Yeah. Spiritually though, I mean, I guess, it is dragged down a little bit, but I think overall I still feel pretty solid. Uh social uh social social's all right. You know what, I've been doing a good job, at least keeping in touch with my family, and reached out to some other friends recently too, so let's call that a four. And occupationally, again, I'm doing what I want to do, so that is going to remain a five. So
Yeah.
there we go. So all in all, shoot, um I'm grateful too, even with all the stresses. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, all right. So, unless you want to talk about anything more right now, I say we just go ahead and dive into our reflections on
Yeah.
we matter. Well, with the um, so for folks who know, we matter, of course, we talk about that. We say that generally all the time in the intro to our episodes. But really, I wanted just to lay the groundwork for this, that when we're talking about this theme, we're talking about it because too often, very often, people seem to get tossed aside when we're suffering. And so this episode is really intended to talk about how misguided that is, that we as human beings, each of us individually, matter inherently, yes, and we matter because we each have something important to contribute to the world, each in our own way. And I genuinely believe that we all do that. We believe that. And so we're going to just, yeah, we're going to brag on ourselves
Yeah.
and others, and have some fun with our guest coming on in just a little bit as well. Granted, this is a pretty darn positive episode, but as usual, I just want to draw attention to the fact that we do speak frankly, and someone could get triggered by something any one of us says. We're
Yeah.
each triggered by different things. So let me go ahead and just remind everybody, that there is help. If you need help, of course, reach out to loved ones if you feel comfortable doing that. There's also crisis lines available anytime for free wherever you are. And in the United States, just dial 988. In Mexico, dial 800 911 2000. These are, you don't have to be, at the edge and suicidal to call. If you are just really struggling, you're really having a
Yeah.
day, you can call a crisis line and talk to somebody. And if you get somebody that doesn't seem to be like hearing you the way you want to be heard, you can hang up and you can call back and get
Yeah.
somebody else. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's this is yours, and really want to encourage you to take care of yourself however you need. So that said, I will stop sharing and I'm going to go ahead and just dive right in. We do take some time to write first on the topic and share that out on our website and our Facebook page on Monday this week. Um, and the piece that I wrote, for those of you who didn't see it, I come up talking right out of the bat, that I had a lot of trouble getting into this one, and I was kind of surprised about it. I was really excited initially to write on it, and when I sat down, I just felt overcome with doubt, and with all the negative messages that I've heard about me, either because I'm telling myself or messages I heard from other people. Um, and so I just had to kind of keep going through it and process that. I shared a little bit about, an incident when I was in college, or a relationship that in college that I just was like, I was just so shocked that this boy that I had a big crush on wanted me for anything more than, a handful of hookups, and that he actually valued me as a human being. To me, that genuinely, because I was coming off so much childhood and young adult trauma, that it just baffled me. And I know I've carried that with me. I carry it with me to some degree today. So that's what was going on in the beginning of the work writing. But all that said, I know I have a ton to offer. I'm gonna go ahead and suck it up and brag just a little bit. All right.
Yes. Yeah. Do.
I am super smart. And it's one of those things that I have rarely lost sight of. I'm smart in a way that lets me process really complex ideas and information deeply. It helps me to see and understand patterns and relationships between things really pretty clearly, which has made me a really strong critical thinker and problem solver, which was a big asset to me in doing the work that I've done over the past 25 years.
Yeah.
Whether it's, working with folks when I was a domestic violence victim advocate, but even more so when I was doing the engaged public policy development work, and really just public policy development in general. I
Yeah.
want to I want to say, and I didn't say this in my piece, but I'm just going to go. I was thinking back to that particular value that I brought to the world, that I
Yeah.
bring to the world, and I did. I actually facilitated this group of people from all different kind of fields, to figure out this really, how to fix a law that was effectively criminalizing poverty. And I worked with all folks on different sides, and I was the lead facilitator and person helping to guide that work.
It's
Eventually
amazing.
rewrote the law in Washington State, and it was signed into law by then Governor Christine Gregoire. And as she was signing that bill, she said it was the best piece of legislation she had signed in her career as of that date. And so I was like, yeah.
That is so
And
good. Yeah. Woo wee. Yeah. That's
I know I've done a lot of those kinds of things along the way. But even, a lot of the things I think I've done well because of two other things. And one is the strength that I have in me, that I felt in me um, uh, forever, really. And particularly as I've been, kind of survived each additional thing, I have, you know, uh, I'll talk about a lot, complaining about how people talk about how strong I am, because when I was in my darkest times, I really needed help, and I needed people not to focus on how strong I was, and I really needed someone to, give me a hand
yeah.
during those times. But that said, I don't think that makes me any less strong. To
No.
say that. And I'm beginning now to kind of re-see and re-engage with that strength in me, which is pretty awesome. And then the other thing,
Yes.
which is the thing that I wrote most about, is that I am the kind of person that gets to know and love people for their whole damn selves.
Yeah.
Everything. It's not, people do that like, I love you even though blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nah, nah, nah. I
Yeah.
love all of you and all of that and everything because I get it,
Yeah.
and I oftentimes, well, anyway, I get it. Um, and I just think it is something really powerful and important that I bring to the world. Um, I talked about, let's see, I talked about how I've been there. I kind of use that to be there in in that way for someone I have loved, just as a human being, in the world very, very deeply, and how important I think it was for that person, um, uh, throughout his adult life. Um, and I also talked about how I transferred this to my daughter and how she impacted others, and one of her friends in particular. Um, and that honestly is one of the best things I think I have ever done in this life. It's a part of me I value the most. And I see this world around us getting harsher, us getting harder on each other,
Yeah.
us getting all more divided. And I just feel like the world can use more people like me in it. So there.
Yes. 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 And more. Yes.
So, how about you, Novalie?
Well, my piece starts out talking about how, I was always forced and told, to vote. And so I vote. And as I'm turning in my ballot, I'm thinking, does does this even matter? Like, do my individually even matter? I talk about that in the beginning, and then it's like, do I even make a difference? And society would lead people to believe like you don't make a difference. And I was also told things like that my whole life. um, and then I talk about the ways that I can make a difference. I can go out in my community and just radically love them and try to promote change, positive change in my community. And then I talk about how I grew up on a Native American reservation, and from a very young age, I was labeled a troublemaker, somebody that's not going to amount to anything, real piece of shit, really. And there was a particular lady, an older lady that my dad had known for years and that had known me when I was a little kid. I don't remember her, but I guess I used to color her pictures and bring her flowers. And I ran into her 42 years later, and she told me how much that meant to her and how it's still impacting her life, and how she would patiently wait weekly for me to come, even though, I had I didn't quite have the reputation when this was happening, but that one little act, continuous act of kindness is 42 years later has still impacted her. So I talk about that. And then, you know, I also go out there and love. I've been homeless, and I've been an addict, and I understand. And I talk about how I will be the person that will stop and, help the lady in the motorized scooter who's trying to grab something, or look the homeless man in the eye, or give a couple bucks if you're driven to. Um, just spreading kindness. And I also had a little bit of a problem with this piece because I have a lot of negative self-talk, not as much now as I used to, but I did hear things like, I have 3 sisters, and I'd hear things like, well, you're not the pretty sister, you're not the smart sister, you're not the successful sister, you're just kind of there, you're not going to amount to anything, you're worthless. And all of that has followed me, my whole life. And I had to really stop and think about all the things that I have survived, and still the person that I am today, that wants to just go out there and just radiate and spread kindness, like like making it a habit. This is a habit, this is what you just naturally do. If I see somebody like just going off on the drive-through person, or throwing a fit in the Dutch Brothers line, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
What do you benefit, or
Yeah.
the person benefit, from your tantrum? you
Right.
know I
Right.
don't get it. I
Right.
don't.
Right.
I don't get it. I've been the drive-through worker, so I definitely am not, I'm not acting like that.
Yeah,
But
for real.
most importantly, to go out there and be non-judgmental. Like I don't see the business suit, or I don't see the dirty wet clothes. I see the heart and the person in there that does make a difference. And if they were just made to feel that just a little bit, if everybody was a little bit nicer, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
um, maybe they would have a different life,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I also want to give you mad props because of your amazing writing. Like I am not that kind of writer. And I
Mm.
just love it, and all the things that you go out and do. You're willing to make this change, and advocate for people, and talk about serious issues that often get overlooked, that are serious, that need change. And I'm really honored to be a part of that. Like, the world is getting harsher. Everybody's in a hurry, and everybody can't look past what they're doing that second to stop and realize that people do matter. And I'm happy to say that I'm beautiful, I'm
Yes, you
smart,
are. Yes, you are.
I love, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I will love you wholeheartedly. I'm giving. I will give, and give anything I can give, I will. And I run a recovery home where I am helping women that are beaten and broken when they get here, just broken and fresh off the streets, and feel at their lowest point, because 3 short years ago, that was me, and I get to be that person. And my job, I get to go meet families where they are, whether it be in their tent or in their, $500,000 home. I get to meet them where they are and navigate them through the resources that they need that they knew nothing about, and help preserve their family. And that makes me really, really proud to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm
then
gonna
Blue,
brag
can I?
on that.
Yeah,
That's what my piece is about.
I love it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I didn't know we were gonna have little dances. We should have come up little dances for
Right.
oh
Yeah.
no, nobly, you really do have a really beautiful heart.
Thank
And
you.
I think I'm listening to you talk about all of the things that you do in the world, from just how you interact with perfect strangers you come to, plus the people you help with that in the recovery house,
Yeah.
and through your work, and you help me. um I'm
Help me.
I'm back in therapy now because of you, because there's something that you said to me, and I'm feeling like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And every time we get together, I feel like I grow a little bit more because of you. And
Likewise.
and so I love you very much.
I love you too. FYI, I got into counseling last week.
Yay!
Just a few little things.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
the occasional tune up, if not the ongoing
Yeah.
tuning up,
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to I just want to add a couple other things, because we, often
Yes,
talk about
please.
what's similar or different in our situations. And I know that we are all unique. I mean, there are some things that are really unique that you offer, and there's some things that are unique that I offer to the world, and so on for every other person.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that I see a lot of certain gifts, that generosity, kindness, that willingness to, to give and spend a little bit more time and listen better to
Yeah.
people, from people who have experienced real deep suffering. Not everybody, of
Yeah.
course, but it seems, and it's obviously not scientific by any stretch of the imagination, it just seems to me to be that way. I know that that is something that's a crossover for the two of us.
Yeah.
I know it's a crossover for our guest here today. Um, and I don't know. Can you imagine? I mean, all of the in just the few short years that we have really been kind of stepping back into our lives and ourselves more fully, right?
Yeah.
As we've moved through trauma, and that we have been through. And I can't imagine what would be, for some people, whose lives we have touched. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really important. And I think if everybody, others reflect on that, and to really see the impact they've had, or really begin to see a picture of just how important, each of us is, each in our own way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, um, I don't know. I mean, I could brag on you forever, and you're like
Yeah.
amazing, all these other
Same.
things,
Yeah.
including, by the way, beyond how beautiful of a heart you are, into um just how, you're your drive and commitment and hard work and how you really step up in service of others all of the time. Completely blown away by your courage to do and try new things. These are all like just, again, part of the special things that you bring to the world that anybody who has the opportunity to have you in their lives, whether as a friend, a colleague, an employee, someday, the people that you're serving, someday somebody who is reporting to you at work. But all of that, I just think is uh, just so incredibly amazing, and the world would be worse off without you. Um, and
Thank
with
you.
that being
I'm not gonna cry. Uh,
all right. Well, we'll
you're
see.
incredible, Megan. Thank you very much.
Well, we talked about last week about trauma showing up in relationships and how we sometimes use, quote unquote, bad behaviors. You talked in your piece about having a reputation on the reservation because of stuff you had done in the past. And I just really feel like these are, many of them, really natural responses to incredibly challenging circumstances. It
Yeah.
doesn't make us bad as human beings. It's, yeah, some things that maybe we're not going to do again, and that,
Yeah.
we wish we had done, maybe, stuff that we're not super happy about. But all of that said, I would love to see us get past judgment and straight to helping and supporting healing, so we can all bring out the fullness of our amazing selves. So one thing I want to say, and actually, I have a final thing I want to say before we invite our guest in. Is there anything you want to say before I do that?
I just want to say, like, everybody is good and talented at something.
Mhm.
Often you'll see, people playing instruments or, singing when they're out on the streets and stuff. But how cool would it be if, they were encouraged?
Mhm.
How much more, beautiful music or, dancing or art or amazing things that we would have in the world if, the people that had the talents could blossom and do something with those talents, because somebody stopped and said, "Oh my gosh, your voice, you should be on American Idol." And then there they go, in a perfect world. But I just want to see people thrive.
Yeah.
And 5 years ago, I lived under the bridge. All of this was not something that even would have even been a thought. And here I am. And it's because along the way, somebody saw something in me,
Yeah.
and somebody started to build me up and started to make me be able to even begin the process of the first layer of healing. And I'm forever grateful. And if I was that person just one time to somebody else, that makes my heart smile.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So that was what I had. I
Yeah.
was thinking a lot about that as you were talking, about, when you said everybody has something, and it's true.
Yeah.
And I want to go out there when I'm out there and tell people when I see them doing something amazing, even if it's out of their shopping cart or
Right.
wherever it is, that they're
Yeah.
amazing and that their piece is amazing.
Yeah. I remember
So
one time walking, this is not what I was going to say, but whatever. I remember walking one time through Denver, and there were a line of people waiting in a food line.
yeah,
And there was a young woman sitting there drawing, and
yeah,
it caught my eye, and I stopped and looked, and I bought a few of the pizzas off of her because I
Yeah,
thought they were so beautiful and wanted her to know that I thought
that's
they
so good.
were
I
beautiful,
love that.
right? Like just
Yeah.
this wonderful talent. And
Yeah.
because I mean, and there's lots of different kinds of talent out there in the world. That was just one. I've also seen some really great humor and actually,
So much.
I mean, there's a million ways to see
Yeah.
it. And okay, I will. I was gonna skip what I was gonna say, but I just have to share my
No,
favorite
please
ever,
do.
my favorite ever my quote from Maya Angelou, who happens to be like my favorite human ever. Um, and my personal hero. But I love this quote from her that is, if you're always trying to be normal, you'll never know how amazing you can be. So wherever you are in your life, I just feel like if you can just be exactly how you are, as you need to be,
Yeah.
and continue to move through it, you'll see how amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, anyway, so with that, let's welcome our guest. I am very excited to welcome Cuica Montoya. Cuica, welcome. Cuica, for those of you who don't know, she is the Safe Outdoor Space Program Director at Colorado Village Collaborative. And I've had the opportunity to work alongside Cuica and just see the amazing human and she is, and amazing work she does. Cuica, I should just say this to you. Hi, welcome. And you
Thank you
may
Welcome,
for
Cuica.
inviting me.
sorry, Cuica, go ahead.
I just said thank you for inviting me. I have thoroughly enjoyed your guys' reflection on your writing, and it's just been an honor to be in this room with you guys.
our virtual community here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh well, I'm and feel very honored that you accepted. So, do you feel ready to brag on yourself a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just go into the little bit about like how I got to where I'm at. So I'll try to tell my story and hit on the points that I've been able to identify throughout my healing journey. So right now I identify as a person in long-term recovery from homelessness, mental health challenges, substance misuse challenges, and recovery from the criminal justice system. So I've been I'll have 8 years in July from all of that. So I'm really excited. Longest I've ever really just been me authentically. So let me tell you a little bit about kind of like what happened. I would say like growing up, it was a relatively normal childhood. Obviously, as like I learned more about like my family history, there's a lot of stuff that like makes sense after the fact. But it's just me, my mom, my sister, and my stepdad. My dad passed away when I was young. I don't really remember him. But I grew up here in central Denver. And I would say, we were a camping family. I went to some we were also kind of a religious family. So I grew up in this just kind of, it felt really wholesome. I don't know. My mom's a teacher. My stepdad was like a copy technician. And we were just cruising along. I would say I didn't start to feel like different or a part of until I started experiencing some bullying in school. It kind of came from just this one haircut. It started with I got my hair cut. I looked like a boy, and I got teased like crazy. And it was just one of those kind of experiences that just made me feel like I wasn't a part of the bigger kind of school community. Anyways, that lasted for a few years, and I didn't, I was kind of just written off, like, because I was in youth group and all this stuff. So, like, I think I started from a young age, really just feeling different and feeling like I wasn't, I didn't have any peers with me. And so that went on for a couple of years. And then, as I became a teenager and grew my hair out and I started getting attention from boys, it was around that time. And it was something that made me feel different than how I was feeling. So I've been able to identify kind of like that first, I would say, kind of inkling of searching for something to make me feel different. Also not really in a healthy way, right? Because I wasn't talking about the bullying. I wasn't talking about how I felt with my family. And I ended up getting pregnant in high school. It was part of like the 90s teen pregnancy boom, whatever. And obviously that alienated me even further from my peers. And it was a really traumatizing experience at the time, because I had some pretty strong male figures in my life, like parental figures, my stepdad, my youth pastor. And when I decided to, I was planning on keeping the baby, and, they just kind of stopped talking to me. Like, 'cause I lived in the same house with my dad and mom and sister, but like, it was like he was gone. So it was like if I was abandoned, from these two like important figures in my life, like at a time when I probably needed them the most. I placed my son for open adoption. I ended up just really trying to, I don't know. I was consider myself pretty spiritual at that age, just because I didn't really know any different, but I was really connected. So like I prayed a lot about what to do about, being 15 and pregnant, whether or not I was gonna, be a teen mom or, place my son in a home that, he could grow up relatively normally. And I ended up placing my son for adoption. And it was afterwards, you would think that there would be like counseling afterwards, or, just like staying in touch with like grief and like the loss that I felt, but none of that happened. I think there was like a couple post-adoption counseling. Anyways, that was like when I shut down. I didn't want to feel the way that I was feeling, and I didn't really have any of my natural connections that I had growing up. So, I tried to, regroup my life and get studious, and I ended up, getting a scholarship to college and, straight A's the last couple of years of high school. But like I never dealt with any of that sadness or that grief, the kind of like the abandonment, the loss, all of it was just kind of buried. And then I put up these like steel walls.
Yeah.
And then I had like locks on those steel walls. I mean, like I was shut all the way down. Like I didn't want to, open myself up again. Anyways, so
hey, Cuica,
yeah.
Can I ask you a question? This was happening in the 90s. Is that
Yep.
okay?
I graduated high school in 1997.
In 97. Okay. I was kind of getting an idea of what kind of the social, the societal kind of climate was around you, around expressing grief and any of that, which it was like, no, in the 90s.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And it was during like right before or right around that time. My mom also was having some challenges with her mental health. And I also witnessed quite a bit of stigmatizing, really crappy behavior from her friends during that time. So like what I saw was like reaching out for help and talking about things made people like judge you. So like that's the kind of where a lot of my internalized self-stigma about seeking mental health care, a lot of that came from that time. Just witnessing and absorbing kind of how my mom was treated during that time. And then, combination of just, it's like bootstraps kinds of stuff, like
Mhm.
it's not something like, let's process this, let's continue, helping you. So, and then of course, I don't know if I would have been willing at the time, because like, it was also when I became I didn't want to trust anybody, because I had been, kind of how I felt abandoned. So I turned into this, I got this, I'm going to do this myself kind of thing. So it was like me against the world. I ended up getting a scholarship to college. I did relatively okay. I also met alcohol for the first time. Well, not really the first time, but like the first time in such a way that like nobody was around. I was by myself. I was living in a dorm, like friends partying. And so I would say I began a relationship with alcohol right around that time. It wasn't a healthy relationship. It was one that definitely was like, this is my new best friend.
Yeah.
This makes me not feel. I also, anyways, so there was a lot of partying. Then there was like this come to Jesus moment where it was either I lost my scholarship because I wasn't, attending school regularly. And it was either I'm going to sign up for loans and continue to go to school, or I'm going to take a break. And I ended up deciding to take a break, which was more like a dropout. And I started working. So I moved back home. My sister got me this job downtown. And so, here I was like fresh 18 working downtown Denver. And I actually found out I was like kind of good with this clerical admin-y type stuff. So I got promoted pretty quickly. And so I would say like this, I got this mode turned into like, I'm going to be successful without college. So like there was some real dark passion, like I'm going to prove to the world I don't need to do this. And I did pretty well on that track for a while. So I ended up leaving that job, but I got another job at a commercial real estate firm. And I was kind of like a low-level admin, but I had the drive, I had the motivation. And I worked my way up. I was pretty successful. I ended up getting my real estate license, kind of created my own hybrid position at this, real estate firm, but it was also a place that kind of, I don't want to say it promoted partying, but it kind of did. I mean, we were commercial real estate, so we were schmoozing presidents and CEOs of big companies downtown. I mean, and I was working in an office full of men, and there was just bars and drinking and trips, and just an insane amount of money and partying. And I also met my daughter's father right around this time, and I don't know why everything inside of me didn't just like scream red flags, but I met him. He told me he was living in a halfway house and he had just gotten out of prison. And we were just immediately like latched onto each other. I would say, yes, we did fall madly in love. And we were both like us against the world kind of thing, turned into this like, we both had something to prove to the world, because we were both kind of like marked with, like these negative tisks or whatever. And, I would say we built kind of a life, not on really solid foundation, but like a really, beautiful life. We had a daughter, we bought a house, we were going to get married, didn't quite make it there. But, there was always this like stream of kind of disconnectedness of partying. We had a lot of external successes, but I think internally, both of us maybe weren't whole or healed. So it's kind of like building life on a quicksand almost. It was, our relationship kind of hit some rough patches, and there were some times where it turned really emotionally abusive, and he ended up leaving me. And I would say this is kind of like when my like grief and abandonment and trauma were triggered again, but I couldn't couldn't tell you they were triggered. And I had a career at this one organization for 7 years. I'd really built, this kind of like outside, pretty like suburban life. But the darkest depression hit my life when he left. And I think it was because like I had put so much into like what our life looked like and was, and really just my identity was that relationship and that job. And unfortunately my coping mechanisms, which were pretty non-existent around that time, were just things of substances. And I kind of introduced some additional substances around that time too, that I became extremely addicted to. So it was cocaine at the time. And people started mentioning things to me, but like somebody telling me like I should go talk to somebody, it was like somebody telling me that there was something wrong with me. And I was very opposed to that. I was like, I got this, like, don't worry about me. I'm going to be fine.
I relate to that, Cuica.
Right? I'm just like, I was offended anytime anybody said that. And it kind of like almost like firmed up my resolve to like not ever go to a therapist. I don't know. It was a really unhealthy kind of self-stigma I had against like seeking help. Even though like, at one point, like during this time, this is when like I had my like first fall down. I had 2 interventions done on me at the same day, not coordinated. So if that gives you kind of any idea of how hot mess I was, my work did, and then my family did. Same day, not coordinated at all.
Wow.
So
that's impressive in its own way.
Yeah. That's how much I was like struggling, but like unwilling to do anything about it. Unwilling to just say, hey, maybe I do. So like to get people off my back, I agreed to like go on a few leaves, treatment. I told my family, okay, yes, I might have a problem with alcohol, but I didn't tell them about the cocaine. It was like I was willing to do a little bit, but not anything that I didn't want to do. Unfortunately, during that time, like I would say, seeking help at a hospital, we've come a long way with mental health and substance misuse. There's still a lot more work to do in our society, but I would say back then, I got pointed to some detox facility that's no longer around. It was called Arapahoe House, and ended up meeting somebody there, and of course, not really paying attention to all the grief and loss that I was experiencing. I did what I normally did, was jump right into something that made me feel different than what I was, and it was around this time that like I really fell all the way down. So like I didn't finishing treatment. I got fired from my career. This is when I started losing my house, and other drugs got introduced to my life. And I also caught my first, it was like my second DUI, but it was like they found a bunch of drugs and stuff in my car. And so it was like DUI plus 3 felonies. And, my lawyer at the time told me, you should probably go to treatment. And I'm like, okay, I'll go to treatment for court. Not because like I needed to, but like I'll do it to like manage this court stuff. I would say this is when I like woke up for the first time. And I was introduced to sobriety and like what recovery could look like for me. And I wish I could say, yes, that was when I got it all, but it wasn't. I'm also a very stubborn person and go through my own little, I had a lot of, patterns of behavior. Some that I just weren't able to identify quite at that time. So it was over the next 4 years, I tried really hard. I'd do a year and then I relapsed, and that first time I relapsed, I relapsed on a drug I had never done and overdosed and wound up in the hospital. And it was pretty intense. And I was like, I got scared right back into recovery. And then I relapsed again because like I was dating a bunch of people and people were talking about me and I didn't like that they were gossiping about me. It's like all these like things that like I wasn't willing to look at, but like I was still doing to make me feel better instead of just like really digging into what some of the core things were for me. After like the fourth attempt, I kind of just like gave up trying to be sober. So I just stopped going to like recovery meetings and I had gotten another job this time. It was in residential real estate. So like there was another kind of fix. It was success in real estate, residential real estate this time. But I was really good at this stuff. But it also like, kind of hit the pause on just like, I was getting what I needed from something else externally. Like that was like my MO is like men, relationships, work, drugs. Just pretty much anything other than like kind of healing what was the hole was there. Anyways, so it was right around this time that I was like, oh, I can drink. Oh, I can do pills. Oh, I can do this. And like, I'm normal. I got this. This is that same repetitive thing. And I ended up getting back together with my daughter's father right around this time. And it was like a re-traumatization of the traumatization of him leaving me. And this time just sent me all the way down again. I started drinking really heavily, lost another job. And then, the drugs entered back into my life. And then when he found out I was doing other drugs, he kicked me out. And that's when my housing instability started. I bounced around for, I would say about 6 months on friends' couches and my friends would be like, oh my gosh, she's a hot mess. Because I was again, I was drowning myself. And then that's when the homelessness started. So I went from housing instability to homelessness and then homelessness. If you can just imagine the darkest despair of a crisis and like, oh my gosh, it was definitely something like I never thought I couldn't tell you in a million years, like, oh yeah, Cuica's gonna experience homelessness. Like I went from suburbs to streets and like about everyone in between each of those falling all the way down. And then on the streets, I don't like to go into any specific details, but experiences of abuse and sexual, physical, things you do to survive, relationships that you get into or situations that are scary. So if you can imagine, that wasn't like daily, but it was over 3 years. There's quite a few experiences that you file away. I think my family around that time really, they didn't know what to do. They tried to help, but I think I was the first member of my immediate family that ever really struggled with what I was struggling with. And it wasn't until, I got another criminal case again. And I was like 35 and in jail, and I couldn't bond out. I had bonded out so many times, they put a no bond hold on me. So I was like kind of stuck and forced into sobriety. And it was there that some clarity came back into my life. And I was just like, what is going on? 35 years old, I'm in jail. I don't have a place to live. I wasn't in my daughter's life. I wasn't in my family's life. And that was when kind of it just like the fire started to do something different, because what I had done in my little bits before then, you know, there was something missing. This is where I like ring the mental health bell. Oh my goodness. Like, had I just not had this such strong stigma around seeking help, and like that my experiences weren't only experienced by me, and like that there's like people out there that have been through maybe not the same thing, but similar things that you know, you can find community around. So it was around
You
this
weren't
time
alone.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was, I was kind of forced when I got out of jail. My mom was like, you can only stay here for 2 weeks. So I was like, fair. And so like she helped me find this program, and it was through like the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, and it was kind of like a dual diagnosis transitional living facility for chronically homeless people. And it was there that like I had my first kind of like, I had like a social worker to talk to on a regular basis. I established healthcare, and I established mental health care. And I got diagnosed with, you know, some mental health, you know, major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder, which I think are kind of symptoms of, which now I've been diagnosed with PTSD, which makes so much sense that some of these things happened as symptoms of kind of this deeper thing that I've been experiencing probably since I was a young kid. So anyways, I went on this journey. I started seeking mental health care. I was doing recovery. I would say it took me about a year of healing, in that like full-time healing. Like I wasn't going to work. I was participating in like different groups. I was also doing some reentry work with, you know, because I had been in jail, and just doing the things that I've never done before to take care of myself. I did relapse one more time, but it wasn't until I was able to like find those last two pieces to my puzzle, which was I get into relationships, or I used to get into relationships to like fill something in me, and grief. So somebody passed away. It was my aunt and a friend died around the same time. And then a relationship ended and I relapsed. And then it was after that relapse that I was like, these two patterns of behavior of like not grieving, also putting myself in situations where somebody's just going to end up leaving me because it's like not a healthy relationship.
Right.
And I focused on those last two pieces to my puzzle, like learning how to grieve. I had to learn how to grieve my son, you know, the life that I had, the life that I thought I was gonna have. I had to like grieve all these things, and grieving for me looked like just being able to talk about it, being able to sit with it and be okay that like some of these things weren't in my life anymore, make a commitment to like not getting into a relationship right away, and kind of like being on my healing journey. And I would say over that next, after my relapse was, you know, this new resolve. I was like, I don't know, like a veil had lifted, and I could finally see more of my puzzle, and like really hone in on how to heal and what to do to like not repeat some of those patterns of behaviors that were a little bit more underlying. Like the drugs and alcohol, that one was pretty obvious. Like, this is something that you need to work on.
Right.
But it wasn't those other like lower behaviors or patterns that weren't uncovered until that like last relapse.
Well, and at that point, though, you'd had some exposure, had some support, right? So you had some like tools, or at least some practice in that,
Yeah,
starting to uncover those things. So it makes sense to me that it would come in layers like that.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And like the willingness was to see a little bit further in, like there's something. I relapsed again. So there's still something there that I'm like not focusing on. So I need to figure out what that is. And I did. And I focused on it. And then that's like the combination of like mental health and therapy and not putting myself in these repetitive pattern behaviors.
Yeah.
I was starting to really feel like I was on a journey of recovery and going to grief groups and just processing different levels of grief and loss in my life. And I think it was at that time that kind of like it was time to start working again, It was either explore disability or get a job again. And I didn't want to go down the disability route. So I went down getting a low stress, low job. I just knew that if I jumped into something like real estate again, that I would get distracted by success. So I wanted to take some of that pressure off myself. I ended up working in food service for the first time in my life, but it was like the most freeing experience, rolling burritos at Illegal Pete's. All my tattoos were out. Nobody judged me. I found out I was kind of a funny, outgoing person, and my self-confidence grew. And I was like, there's something, like, oh, this is Cuica. And that's when like the burning of helping others started, the spark started to say, hey, it was something like, it was like a nudging me. It was like my heart was pounding, something was nudging me to like, because like I'd been through so much. Yeah. And I'm like, how am I still here? Like I'm meant for something else. And that's when I found out about peer support. And I was like, peer support, for those that don't know it, is utilizing your unique lived experiences to help others in similar situations. And I got trained in that, and it was like it broke open my whole world at that point. And I've been on this kind of journey of centering my unique experiences that I bring, my unique qualifications to the table. And I got a great job. My first peer job was at the Denver Public Library in a brand new, innovative kind of meet people where they're at kind of scenario. And it was there that like advocacy entered my life by encouragement from my boss. Participate in this panel, do this, thing, and testified for Senate bills about mental health in jails. And that was when I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually like use my voice, and like these like societal negative things or whatever are actually not, that people need to hear how people have recovered, and that we no longer get pushed under the rug. Like I exist and I matter as I am today, with everything that I've been through and everything that I have to offer. And then that journey kind of led me to one job that led me to the next job. And now I'm blown away every single day. I get to go to work and do what I do.
I had a flash to the tattoo on my hip that says hell yes, because I want to say hell yes.
Yes. So that's a little bit of my story. Hopefully I didn't go too long on that.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I think it's really important to hear the whole arc, right? Because people like hear like this little slice and they are quick to fill in all the rest with whatever biases or judgment or whatever it is that they're trying to fill in. And it's not real. It's not. And here you are. I mean, this amazing human being doing the amazing things that you do in the world. You've told us a little bit about some of the things that you've had to do. I also would really love you to tell us a little bit more about the program you lead and actually help design. I want to pause real quick. Any questions come up for Nobly that or anything you wanted to get in here before we move on to that?
I'm just our stories are so similar in a lot of ways, and I am just meeting you. But what a fantastic things that you do. I also I did the peer support mentor training, and I'm doing that. But you're amazing. Your story's amazing. I'm there's so much in common. Maybe we can talk some other time, but thank you for being here, and what an amazing human being.
Yeah. Well, and then check this out, what she's doing now. So
Hey.
Yeah. I'm gonna do a
Okay.
dance again.
Yes. Okay. This is what gets me going in life. I feel like everything led up to this moment. So the pandemic hit. I actually got laid off from the nonprofit that I had been working at. And you know, a lot of self-doubt kicked back into my life, anxiety about like my resume and my gaps in my employment and like all this stuff. And I went and picked up my last check from the nonprofit I was working at, and I sat in my car and like let out this big sigh and pulled out my phone just to check my messages before I started driving. I had a message on my LinkedIn, and it was from the founding executive director of the organization I work at. It said, "Hey, we're trying to do this. We put this proposal together to present to the city, and your name was recommended to me as somebody I needed to talk to about this." And I ended up calling him back that morning, and we scheduled an interview for a week later, and I was hired a week after that. So the program was designed, it's called Safe Outdoor Space, and it was designed as a kind of COVID prevention for our unhoused community members during a global pandemic. This proposal got pushed forward. It's been talked about a lot to provide people with safe areas to sleep outside. But it didn't really get much traction until, this global health crisis hit. Nobody knew how it was being spread. Nobody knew how deadly it was. And we knew that we had to take care of our unhoused community members that weren't seeking shelter because, like, you need bathrooms and hand washing sinks and showers. Like, we were getting ready to go on our first lockdown, and they were trying to, put this proposal forward to provide what we call an alternative individualized sheltering model for people experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So, in our current sheltering system here in Denver, there are gaps, and there are reasons why people don't access big box shelters. And, there are a variety of reasons I can touch on, but, for whatever reason, there are people that choose not to go into the open beds at shelters. And, mental health related reasons, like being in a room with 400 other people, or you have a pet, or you have a partner, or maybe you don't feel comfortable. Yeah, safety concerns. Maybe you don't feel. I didn't ever seek shelter because, like, I had heard scary stories, and I was like, a single woman, newly homeless, never experienced it, and I didn't want to seek it. I was like, this sounds super scary. I'd rather risk it sleeping outside, or doing what I did, with my little crew of street family. We rolled around, got hotels every now and then, and, kind of, anyways, it was, so anyways, there's over 1,200 people on the streets every night here in Denver. And then they knew that they needed an option to take care of them during the COVID pandemic. And my boss wanted somebody with lived experience who was in recovery from life challenges to be the leader of this program. So like totally blew my mind. My advocacy in the city of Denver had, turned some heads, and my name got recommended to him. And, I came in with a basic concept and did a lot of outreach on the streets to get people who were sleeping outside. Like, if you were to go in a space like this, what would you need? What would make you go, okay, I'm going to go here? Because people are not accessing shelter for a variety of reasons. So that infused with a little bit of my own journey and like knowing what it took to get me out of homelessness. I knew that it was many different organizations that helped me along my journey. I knew we needed to bring community into these spaces as much as possible. And so here I was, kind of not believing that I'm in this role because, typically this is somebody that's been to like human services, bachelor's degree or social work. And, one of my, I don't know, you've talked nobly about negative self-talk, but like my negative tape player tells me like, I'm not worthy. And, because I didn't go to school and, I was like, there's always those like, negative tape players that I have to combat every now and then, but it felt so empowering to not only be prioritized or sought out for a role like this, like my unique lived experience, my qualifications that are disregarded by the majority of society are actually what they want in this space. It was the most empowering experience I think I've ever felt. It took us a little bit to site our first site, but once we did, they were already talking about expanding us. It was, like some key pieces of our operations plans were modified based on my recommendations and like things that like typically aren't, I don't know, it just, it's so amazing. So we opened our first one in December of 2020 and, being somebody that has my own lived experience and knowing how important that first job was after experiencing life challenges and like somebody saying, I don't care that you have a gap in your resume or I honor your experience and where you're at. So, like I was given that opportunity. So I wanted to hire people just like me. And I told my boss, I'm going to hire people just like me. And he goes, cool. I'm for it. You do what you want to do. So I got to hire, 70% of my staff are all people that have recovered from life challenges. And I'm serving people experiencing life challenges. So I'm serving people like me. I get to help people like me. I get to employ people like me. We get to center the experience of the person. And they also get to go, oh, you've been there? You've done that?
Yeah.
It's a not normally what people are expecting when they seek services with us, because like I could see how some people are like, oh, this is just going to be like every other shelter system, but it's not. I strive to be different. I strive to center somebody's personal experience. We give more autonomy. We don't have curfews. We don't have unnecessary rules. We do have rules. We have community agreements. We ask them to participate in our community to the best of their ability, along certain lines. But like, we really try to get on the same page with people. And that just means building that relationship right from the giddy up and saying, hey, I get it. I might not have been what you're experiencing, but here's what I've experienced. And so like my staff all get to share their experience and hope with other people. And now I started serving 40 people and 7 staff. And now I serve almost 150 people, and I have about a staff of 30.
That's incredible. And is that 150 people total that you have served, or that you're serving
No, that's
currently?
150 on a nightly basis.
Jeez. Do you know how many total?
I think in my lifetime, I just did some numbers. I've served 490 people.
You've made a difference in the lives
I've
of
also
nearly 500 people.
I've also like moved people along to more permanent housing, like apartments and longer term sheltering options. 178 people have moved on to the next step in their life.
It's incredible. And I tell you what, I've had the great fortune of hearing from people who have been through the program, who moving on to the next step, and just the joy and in people's voices and their eyes, and the real, like, this sense of I don't know, sense of self, and sense of there's real respect, and I don't know, felt seen, heard. I don't know what it is, but a lot of that was coming through to me in each person that I have heard. It's really a beautiful. So we are talking about we matter. You matter in a whole lot of people's lives, in what you do on a daily basis, as well as the thought you brought into that design. I'm curious if we talked a little bit, Nobly and I were talking about how there's all this each of our individual kind of greatness and these wonderful things about us. I'm curious if there's any of that you would share for the array of people you have had the pleasure to meet and serve.
The first one I want to bring up was somebody I met with my work at the library doing a peer navigator. I met this person kind of just in the central library, providing resources to them. And at one point during that time, we tried to get him into a rehab facility, but there was a lot of stigmas around IV meth use. And we had to break down some barriers. So he gave up at that point, but he also was one of my first SOS residents. So he moved into my first safe outdoor space. He was in an encampment right across the street. I was doing outreach, and there's Alan. I was like, oh my God, I love Alan. Anyway, so he moved in, and he, after about a year said, or no, I think it was 8 months, maybe a little less than a year, 8 months. Was like, Cuica, I want to try again. I'm like, you want to try? He was like, yeah, I do. Well, we got him into that same rehab facility that denied him initially. So he was persistent and willing. He is moving back to Denver. He's just celebrated 18 months of sobriety, and I was one of his first calls. He wants to volunteer at the space. He speaks so highly of his experience there. I would say, I mean, there's so many. We prioritize, one of the gaps, or one of the main things we prioritize is the racial disparities in unsheltered homelessness. So we really use an equity lens when serving folks. There was this wonderful couple, and they had experienced some, I think they might have gotten evicted right before, either during the pandemic or right before it, or right around the time, so it was, they met our equity lens on our, attending to racial disparities. They were this beautiful Black couple, and they were a couple, and that's another gap in the sheltering system. So like being able to like prioritize serving people that are traditionally not served in our homelessness continuum. And their experience, they engaged with our peer support on site. They focused on working through some of the things that they wanted to work on, and they got housed, and they have just been You know, Pam now has an emotional support animal. They love their little apartment on the west side of town. I got to like outfit them with like, I went and bought a vacuum cleaner for them, and you know, all these like I got to like go treat their little house by them, you know, some the housewarming gifts. They're doing amazing. We recently got another couple into housing, and they're working on getting their his daughter back custody wise. So people are like, not just, you know, I always want to, when I talk about the success of the program, housing people is by far just the most amazing thing to experience. But I also don't want to get pigeonholed on like just, you know, shooting people into an apartment and then like, you know, like that's the end result. Like, yes, housing is a solution to homelessness, but like the story on their way to is really what's so amazing. So like this other couple that just recently got housed, like, you know, they wanted to work on their couple issues. So like they prioritized figuring out how to build a foundation so that when they got into housing, they could get his daughter back and really start building on that like square one foundation building block. And
what a wonderful thing can they say that is for that child, right? I mean, not just impacting their lives, but the child's life. And you know, it's exponential, right? When
exponential.
Yeah, when we show up for others. Yeah.
So there's about a million other stories like that. Well, yeah, a million, maybe not a million. But like
I'm willing to bet there are.
I just did some reporting. So I have this peer support program, and we had over 1,000 peer-to-peer interactions on our sites.
Wow.
Where people were talking, engaging about anything from mental health, substance misuse, to grief, familial relationships, wellness, coping strategies. I mean, the breadth of what folks are inquiring and wanting to work on and talking about in our space. And talk about like, and one of those experiences, like this is such a non-traditional space. So you're already in a non-traditional space, but you're also having direct access to people who understand, who see you, know that you're not boxed into this category of homelessness and all those other stigmas that get wrapped up into homelessness, but that we see you as an individual with goals, with ideas for what you want to see in your life. And we're there for whenever you want to start exploring what it looks like to get to those. And we don't have a certain pathway. We honor whatever pathway you want to take. We're like your biggest cheerleaders. So like one of my longest staff that I've had was recommended to me by somebody in recovery that he really wanted to work in homelessness and give back because he knew that it had taken many people to help him get out of homelessness. And so he had a desire. I hired him at 4 months sober. He's got over 2 years now, and is like my right hand in developing programmatic elements into the program. And I also have, I mentioned 70% of my staff have lived experience. Each one of them has an amazing story about how being seen for the first time in a meaningful job. So not only being seen and honored for whatever you've been through, like I want you, your experience, however unique it is valuable in this space. And I've had people grow and leave the organization to go on to a different role and more exciting role, and then eventually some come back and say, hey, I never felt as seen as I do except for with you in this organization, and my lived experience is valued elsewhere. And I'm like, well, it'll always be valued here. We work really hard to center that experience. And help folks. So I feel like we have like a full, I don't know,
Yeah. Well, that,
full circle experience there, staff, community members.
Yeah. It really is something special. And that, I mean, you've really hit on, I think you've said it several times, that seeing you, whether it's people you're serving or people that are working for and with you, that seeing you, I remember it being so important for me, which, by the way, I should have in my check-in. I celebrated 9 years 3 days ago.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I remember my friend who, when I was desperate, like literally feeling like I no longer had blood in my veins, that it was all booze. That's how I felt, saturated and terrified. And my friend said, I'm talking to at 3 a.m, said, go, I want you to get online, find the first meeting you can find, and you go to that. And I remember going in and sitting there with my hoodie. This is a theme, nobly, the hoodie, right? And I had the hoodie up over my head, and like, I went and sat down just in the corner, like kind of closed off, and just, and in just a very short, I don't know how long it was, but it wasn't long before someone came and sat down next to me. She put her arm around me, and I remembered, like, from that moment forward, as like a little by little, like people like talking to me, and I like real people, and I didn't feel judged, or and it just, everything just like little by little just started to open up. And it was like, and they're like, and you need to go medically detox because you're going to die if you don't, but so that's next, and then we'll go from there. And so I did, but over time, and that was a real difference between then and before, because I also, like, I realized later on, I had blamed most of my alcoholism and falling down on my daughter's death. And the truth of the matter is that I drank alcoholically from the very first time I had a drink, also related to childhood PTSD from childhood trauma, and other things that layered on top of it. And in that time too, I'm a little bit older than you, but I graduated high school in 91. But those like hard walls you talked about so resonated with me. And that's a brittle way of being. And I definitely used drugs and alcohol to, ease the edges. And there were like little things back then where people are like, you have something going on, but I felt right. And no. And then off the deep end after Jasmine died. But that said, those interactions then were, I totally also relate to that judgment. And I didn't feel seen. I felt wrong and bad and shameful, and not like, oh, you know what? Yeah, you've been dealing with a crap storm of a life, and and I get it. And you want to do something better for yourself because you're worth it. Then let's do that. I mean, so anyway, so I see when I see what you're doing, how different that is. And in fact, I posted this article on our Facebook page that you actually, I found because you shared it on LinkedIn, Cuica, from back in October in the Colorado Sun, that talks about people who it talks about all sorts of wonderful things about your program, but I really was drawn to one of the people who they talked to, who had been a resident, and how guarded he he was self-described, how guarded he was when he, first got there. And it had massive, I mean, he was traumatized just, just from living on the street. And I would venture to guess prior to, and part of the story to get there. Um, but that said, that there's something special about what y'all do. And I think that's it. I'm curious if you think that's it, that real seeing and meeting people where they are, without judgment.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about peer support until the day that I die. It's in my blood, it's in my veins. There is something very magical, and I don't want to say magical because it's like not unattainable, but it's the mutual being seen. So it's somebody saying, I have been through this that sounds similar to what you've been through, and I see you. And it's that person acknowledging, being seen, and seeing the other person. And those walls that I'm sure a lot of us have or had or whatever, they melt.
Yes.
They just go, oh my gosh, like I am safe with you.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful thing to when you've experienced the judgment and the shame and the, whether it be self-imposed or societal or familial or whatever it is, when you know what it feels like. So when you take that away from somebody else feeling it and you say, I see you, and I'm like, I get it, I'm here. I've been through this, and this. It's just one of those mutually reciprocated, beautiful things that happens when you get vulnerable and you're willing to share a little bit. And, I don't, not everybody's willing to like just drop their most vulnerable moment. So I encourage my staff to use skillful disclosure. Don't force it on them, but when you see an opportunity, your heart pounds, they know, heart pounds, they drop a little vulnerability, and then that person's like, oh, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm seen, I'm not alone. And we try to just encourage that with one another. And that's really one of the core tenets of my spaces, is making sure people feel like they're seen, heard, felt, honored, just as they are.
Yes. Yeah.
Just as they are. Just whatever they're carrying.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have to wait to be honored until I get quote unquote fixed, right?
Yeah, you don't need to do these things for me
No.
to say, I see you, I'm here for you, and let's figure this out together.
Yeah.
Because you matter. We matter.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh my God. I almost I almost don't want to say anything else. One of the things that we often do around this point is to talk about the things that help and don't help. And I really, in terms of, in this case, in this theme, I think we've been doing it along as we've been hearing your story and hearing about in particular what you've been doing with safe outdoor spaces and that peer support approach, right? I had a bunch of notes written myself about like what's helped, hear us, see us beyond just our trauma, right? Because like there's this human being here. We talked about like last time about like I talked about this monster I feel like I was, when it's just like I was living in this alive sense of trauma. It was just everything, but that wasn't me. And to be seen beyond that, to see and all of that, not disregarding it, not like some Pollyanna view, but all of it, all of me, helped me to feel a little bit more human and a lot less like that monster that I felt like. So I see that, I hear that we've talked about that. This like we didn't talk about so much, and is that like having time, well, maybe a little bit, that time and space to land, right? So you're not pushing anybody, so that's huge, right?
Yeah, it took me a year to heal. And that was when I was at my ultimate, like, I am willing to do anything. Not everybody comes into my space like that. And so sometimes we just have to let people be, and just, you deserve a safe place to sleep, and like not have to worry about where you're going to sleep or how you're going to sleep, or, whatever, that you can just be like as you are right here, right now. And then, we let people know that we're here whenever they're ready. Some people are ready right away. Others aren't. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to meet a certain requisite other than agreeing to our community guidelines to be in the space. We don't require sobriety. We don't require you meet regularly with, a case manager or a peer. It's all voluntary, because honestly, you guys all know on your healing journey, until you were ready and willing to do the work that it took, you weren't going to do it.
Nope.
No matter if people told you, or it's still that innate desire inside of you that goes, I'm ready to do something different. Yeah. Right. And then you absorb when people are like, here, I'm here. And then you're like, oh, you're here. Let me use you. Right.
For real.
It has to be that person-centered approach where, like, you're not going to achieve any lasting anything until you do the things that you want.
Yeah.
The journey, right?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Sometimes we try something and it fails, and so then we're willing to try something different.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody should have this space to do that.
Agreed. And I was gonna say it for me, like, right, I wouldn't, but I also couldn't for a certain period of time. But trauma and grief was so intense, it just wasn't possible. And I was trying to do all this other life stuff at the same time, and it was just madness. And it's like, how do you do that race to do anything to not feel and deal with these things, whether it's relationships or sex was a big thing for me, drugs, alcohol, all of that. Anyway, we could talk about this forever, and I'm realizing we're going a little longer than we normally do, and just feeling. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Hopefully I didn't go too long.
Oh my gosh, no. If you're okay, are you both okay to hang in for just a little bit more?
Yeah.
So there's just a couple of other little things that I had hoped to touch on before we go. Nobly, I know that you had wanted to just kind of underscore this idea about being there for someone, meeting them where they are. Every time I'm listening to Cuica's story and I hear you in the back of my head too, in the stories that you share. Did you want to add anything to that?
No. What I really just want to say is everything that Cuica had mentioned that she's doing and that she has to offer in her shelter was everything that I needed when I was on the streets of Olympia. I needed someone to see me, to like really see me. I needed somebody to believe in me enough to offer me something, even if it was writing a menu at the shelter, or, you know, anything, to give me any sort of sense of accomplishment to want to even continue to breathe, you know, because I went lots of places when I could muster up the strength to do anything, and I was treated like dog shit, you know. And I had substance abuse disorder, I had bipolar, I had lost my son, I had been sexually assaulted, I had PTSD, you know, it goes on and on and on. And so I was labeled, you know, not like I couldn't be in some of the shelters, like she had mentioned. And so everything that she is doing and has done is everything that I needed. And I'm just so, and everything that I want to do in the future. I want to open a place up like that, you know? And the whole time I was living on the west side, in the woods in Olympia, one person came. Well, it was a couple, and I don't even know where they were from or what their deal was, but we were in the like a 2-man tent, me and my boyfriend. Everything we had was wet. We'd been up for days. We were sick. We had no food, and there was, you know, there was trash in front of our place. It wasn't ours, but we had put our tent there anyway. They came in and knocked, you know, scratched on our tent, and they went and bought us a 6-man tent, dry sleeping bags, a burner, tons of little cans of sterno heat. And they met us where we were, and we were not in a good spot. And I'll never forget. I could cry at how I felt putting up that clean tent. I was dirty. You know, I didn't even barely unzip my head out of my damp sleeping bag to look at these people. And they go, "Oh, we're going to be right back." And so anyway, that's example of meeting us where we are and seeing us, not just two drug addicts in a tent, but in the woods, because that's what they want to do. You know, taking time to find out maybe why they're there and what we can do to help and provide a place where all of that's possible, is so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. But
yeah.
Thank you for saying that, because that's what I strive for every day, is like, you know, I can be who they needed. I can provide what they need. Really just,
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And really, you know, one of the things I keep thinking, like, I'm like, oh, we need a culture shift. And then I'm like, we're in the middle of a culture shift. What you're doing at Safe Outdoor Spaces is part of a culture shift. This conversation is part of that, where we are, you know, getting to that, you know, stepping in and leaning into supporting and supporting healing and helping folks from wherever they are, whenever they're ready, whenever we are ready. And I'm just really glad to be a part of it, and I'm really glad nobody gave up on any of us. And I'm glad we didn't give up on ourselves. So it's so I have one kind of final thought that I'd like to share, but before I do that, is there anything that either of you would?
I would just say, for anybody that's journeying or healing or struggling, don't give up, and be gentle on yourself, and find your tribe. Find people around you that see you and can help.
Beautiful. Nobly?
Just that, to send the message to everybody that they truly do matter, and that people do care, and they are absolutely worth something. And in everything in my power, my little self does matter. I will try to provide and make a way, um, to make life easier, one person at a time. If that means, waving or letting the car go ahead of me, or whatever I can do. But like Cuica and you have said a lots here, to see them, here, and to love on them, whatever that may look like, but just to love on them, whether that be looking at them in the eyes, or telling them their shirt's cool, even if it's not, you know, whatever it is that you can do at that moment for that person, please, America, do it. Do it. It costs you nothing, but the benefits of whatever it is that you're doing may last that person that day, may last them that week, may last them their lifetime. Whatever you do may be that little nudge that that person needs to go to the next step in their life, to be the amazing people that they can be. So thank you. This is amazing. Thank you.
I love it. And in a very, very similar vein, but I wanted to speak to people who are facing some of those really, really dark times that each of us has faced. People are maybe facing them right now. I want to encourage you to reach for whatever lifeline that you can find. If there's something, and keep reaching out. Reach out, hold on. If that one isn't strong enough, reach out and grab for another, and just hold on. I know there are many amazing people out there, like the people that that Nobly talked about, who came to the tent, that people like Cuica and the program that she provides, that people like the woman who put her arm around me in my very first AA meeting. And we are out there. And I know that I want to say I know those dark times, and I know how hard it is to feel any sense of hope, and sometimes even the energy to reach out. But I want to say that I'm immensely grateful that I'm here every day. Every day that I get now, I am so grateful that I reached out and held on. And I just want you to remember that, like each of us, the world needs you. And I want you to remind yourself of, anytime you can, of anything that you see that you love about yourself, anything that you can find, big or small, whenever there's enough light for you to see it. You matter, we all do. And with help from each other, we can do the surviving thing and all be better for it. So there you go.
Yeah.
So with that, we will wrap up this episode for tonight by a couple of things. One, thank you so much, Cuica, for being with us.
Hey, my pleasure.
And two, I get the pleasure of introducing next week's theme. We're going to be talking about trauma and work in particular, and wherever you are in that spectrum, and how managing that, and managing all of the pressures of work, at least for the way it may be for you at the moment. And we get to do that with one of the most amazing leaders I know. who is out there working right now. Her name is Bridget Daisy. She is the executive director of the Clackamas Workforce Partnership in Oregon. She is extraordinary, and I'm very excited to talk about this. She has some fabulous ideas for employers and employees alike, and how we can do a better job in that space.
Yeah.
And not just put it on the backs of the person who is suffering. So very excited about that. And so with that, we do close with our first two medicines, water and laughter. And we start with laughter.
I had a hard time coming up with something, so this one's kind of But what do you what do you say when the fitness trainer asks you what kind of squats are you accustomed to doing? What kind of squat are you accustomed to doing?
I have no idea.
You just say diddly. Diddly squat.
Diddly squat.
It's not that funny. I know.
That's a dad extraordinaire joke.
I wanted to tell the one about the older couple and their trip to the doctor, but
someday we'll be brave enough to roll that one out.
Yeah. So we'll just take my cheesy one for this episode.
I love it. Thank you. Always. And you got me laughing. So there we go.
Okay. Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Cheers to you both.
Cheers. Thank you.
Good night, everybody. That's okay. You can go get one next. It's, it's good. Okay. It's life.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.